Viewers, this is an Independence Day special broadcast on Times Now. Thanks for joining us. And our guest needs no introduction. 3 times Grammy Award winner, music sensation composer Ricky Kej. Ricky, thank you for speaking to Times Now. The teaser of your new version of the national anthem, your rendition of the national anthem is out. Can you share with us what inspired you to create this groundbreaking rendition of the national anthem?
So last year I had created a version of the national anthem where I conducted a 100-piece symphony orchestra in Britain performing the national anthem. So it was a great moment because 100 of Britain's finest musicians and me being an Indian composer conducting them. So it was a great experience. And then after that, when I was listening to the anthem after the release, of course, the anthem was very successful. Our Honorable Prime Minister also had tweeted it and congratulated me on the anthem. I felt that we needed to have a little bit more of the soul of India in that particular anthem. So then I thought that why not get in touch with the best classical musicians from across India to actually perform on this anthem. Rather, my favorite classical musicians to perform on this anthem. So I got in touch with the best of the best. I got in touch with Pandit Hariprasad Chaurasia, Rakesh Chaurasia, Aman Anayan, Rahul Sharma, Jayanti Kumres, Sheikh Mehboob, Giridhar Udupa, and I requested them to be a part of this anthem, and they absolutely obliged. And I was extremely fortunate to work with such amazing musicians. And then on the icing of the cake was that there is this institute in Bhubaneswar called the Kalinga Institute of Social Sciences, which at any given point of time, they basically educate, clothe, board, feed completely free of cost 40,000 tribal students. So I got in touch with them and I told them that why don't I give y'all a singing lesson? Why don't I give your students a singing lesson to 14,000 of your students? And we ended up breaking a Guinness World Record for that, and that ended up with the students being a part of this anthem and singing the national anthem. In fact, so it is an amazing experience of the British Orchestra plus the amazing legendary classical musicians of India and 14,000 tribal students singing the national anthem.
I can tell you, Ricky, I have goosebumps, while we're discussing this and you're describing what it took to create this. But I want to ask you what really inspired you to feature 14,000 children from tribal communities in this version, and what message you hope to convey through this representation?
So it is amazing to show the diversity in India through these 14,000 children. And of course, the institute itself, the Kalinga Institute of Social Sciences, which take care of these children completely free of cost, that itself was very inspiring. That I wanted to do something with these children, and they were so amazing to work with. I remember it was raining during the day that we were recording these kids. We had converted an entire stadium into a recording studio with over 200 microphones, and we actually did a proper professional recording of these kids, and also teaching them, giving them a music lesson was also quite a blessing. So all of this put together made me feel that, that these children need to be a part of this anthem, and this anthem needs to become huge.
Okay, Ricky, the hard work is showing you've already achieved a Guinness World Record for this. Was it a Herculean task to achieve the perfect output with 14,000 children? What were the challenges?
So the easiest part was working with the children, simply because all of them are very enthusiastic, very energetic, and most importantly, all of them, because of the amazing education that they get, they were very disciplined. So it was very easy working with the children. The challenge was the logistics, obviously, because nobody has ever created a singing lesson for 14,000 children. In fact, the previous record is from a Tennessee university in the United States of America, and that record is just 6,500 children. So we've gone more than double of that. So the challenge was, how do we teach these children? So we created a stage which was in the shape of a cross, so that I could be as close to as many students as possible. We had to bring in over 200 microphones, state-of-the-art recording equipment. We had to bring in the best sound engineers to help us out with it. So all of that was a challenge. The logistics of it was a challenge, and to try to understand how do we do this Herculean task when it has never been done before. And that is the reason why it won a Guinness record, because it's never been done before and it's never been done in this scale. So I guess working with the children was the easiest part. The logistics of it and the technicalities of it was the challenge.
Well, congratulations on the Guinness record, Ricky. But, last year too, you created sensation in collaboration with 100 members of the British Orchestra. You were, talking about it. Why the appeal with the national anthem in particular? Anything that you had in mind, or someone spoke to you about?
So, the first piece of music that I ever learned as a child was the Indian national anthem. When I was 2.5 years old, I think my parents had already taught me the Indian national anthem, and it was played quite regularly in our house. And there was a small keyboard in our house. Of course, nobody in my family were musicians, but even then I'm not sure why there was a keyboard at home. So I remember just dabbling with the keyboard and hitting a couple of keys. And then, and the Indian national anthem has got a lot of repeating notes in the beginning of the anthem. So I was just hitting a couple of notes and I realized that, wow, this sounds very similar to the Indian national anthem. And that is when, in a few days I developed those notes and I figured out, okay, now I know how to play the Indian national anthem. So the first piece of music that I ever played on a keyboard was the Indian national anthem. And it's a piece of music that is in my blood. It's something that comes very naturally to me. And more importantly, every country has got a national anthem, and in most countries all over the world, the national anthems have got a certain degree of controversy associated to it. Whereas in India, that's not the case. In India, wherever you are, whichever part of India you are in, whichever region of India, whatever political ideology you have, when you listen to the first few notes of the national anthem, it immediately evokes a sense of patriotism, a sense of love for the country, and a sense of duty towards our nation. And that is the beauty of this piece of music, and it also showcases the power of music. And for me, I'm all about showcasing the power of music, and there's no better example than the Indian national anthem.
Absolutely. This has been well received. I've been seeing some of the reactions on social media. But I want you to tell us more about it. What are the unique aspects and specialities of this new rendition with the Royal, the Philharmonic Orchestra? Anything else that you want to specify for our viewers?
So, as I mentioned, the unique aspect is the three layers that it has. One is, of course, the Royal Philharmonic Orchestra. I've built on the recording that I did last year. On top of that is all these amazing Indian classical musicians from across India. It was so much of a privilege to actually work with these musicians. Working with Pandit Hariprasad Chaurasia, I'd never met Pandit Ji before in my life, and I've just seen a few of his concerts. I've seen 4 of his concerts, and obviously completely mesmerized by each of his concerts that I've seen. Listened to his music since I was a child, and to be in the same room with him, to be in his presence, that itself was a huge blessing. To actually take his blessings while touching his feet when he entered the studio, and to watch him perform. As a musician, one cannot ask for anything more than that. And of course, all the other musicians like Rakesh Chaurasia, Aman and Ayan, Rahul Sharma, Sheikh Mehboob, Giridhar Udapat, working with all of these amazing classical musicians. Right. It's so amazing just watching them in action and to learn from them while you're working with them. And then, of course, the third layer is the children. Working with the children was a completely different experience of working on that scale and actually being in that stadium and listening to 14,000 children singing in front of you.
Right.
That is an overwhelming experience.
Oh, let me ask you about the names
that one can only have, one can be only fortunate to have in a lifetime.
These are big names, Ricky, that we are talking about. You named some of them, world's best talent, legends in their own right. What was the experience like? What impact did it have having such maestros play the national anthem alongside you?
It was, of course, a fantastic experience. So now the national anthem, the notes are sacrosanct, because the national anthem is beautifully composed and created by Sri Rabindranath Tagore. And so we have to stick to the notes. That is very important. But at the same time, a great musician will play those exact same notes, but they will take it to another level through the beauty of their playing. And that's what I saw with all of these musicians that I collaborated with. With Pandit Hariprasad Chaurasia, just listening to him play the national anthem and play it in his style, it was amazing. It was absolutely accurate. It is the way the national anthem needs to be played, but he played it in an extremely beautiful fashion. And same thing with all the other musicians. With Rakesh Ji, amazing. He's just fresh off winning 2 Grammy Awards this year. What an amazing musician. With Rahul Sharma, he played the santoor, and again, it was just magical listening to him play the santoor and listening to him play the notes of the national anthem and giving all of these variations and ideas and thoughts about how do we take this recording and this version to another level. Giridhar Udupa, our percussion player, he played the khatam. So normally the khatam is used as a rhythm instrument, and that's what I assumed he would do, that he would just play it as a rhythm instrument. But then what he did was that he brought about 9 khatams, and then he played the melody of the Indian national anthem on the khatams, each khatam representing one note. And he played it almost like it was a piano, or it was a marimba, or a jaltarang. He played all the notes of the national anthem. And same thing with the amazing Nadaswaram players, that is Mr. and Mrs. Sheikh Muhammad.
Right.
They won a Padma Shri for their amazing work with the Nadaswaram, and they played the Nadaswaram beautifully. In my opinion, they're pretty much the flag bearers of this tradition. And they also brought that magical element to the recording. And same thing with Aman and Ayan. Aman and Ayan, I've done concerts with them in the past, and they are such amazing human beings and such amazing musicians to work with. So everybody brought their own unique identity, their unique talent, and that's what showed the diversity in this particular anthem. And what I've also done is that every single musician, I've requested them to play the entire national anthem.
Right.
So even though the version that we will be listening to when it releases on Independence Day is going to be small bits of the anthem played by each of the musicians, I will be releasing at a later stage. I'll be releasing multiple versions of the national anthem, where each version is played by a single musician.
I was about to ask
like
you,
we'll have one version by Pandit Hariprasad Chaurasiya where he's playing the full national anthem. Same thing with Aman and Ayan. Same thing with Rahul Sharma.
Can't wait for that, Ricky. Going by, what we've just seen in this version, which is out already today. Now, what are your thoughts on incorporating different patterns and methods that are novel to Indian music, and how can a fusion like with the British Orchestra, for example, enrich our own cultural heritage?
So, when it comes to the Royal Philharmonic Orchestra, they are a Western classical orchestra. Now, when it comes to a Western classical orchestra or Western classical musicians, you need to write every single thing that they're going to be playing, and you need to give it to them. They put the sheets in front of them, they look at the sheets and they play it. And that's how the 100-member orchestra played the music. Everything needs to be written to them: where to play soft, where to play loud, where to stretch a note, where to make a note very short, where not to play anything. Everything is written on the sheet, and they just look at that sheet and they play it exactly the way that you want it to be played. Whereas the Indian musicians, the Indian classical musicians, play with feel. They will never be able to play the exact same thing twice, because they play with feel, they play with emotion, and they take things to a whole new level. Like if you give them a composition to play, they will listen to that composition and they will play it in their own style, and they will take it to places and regions and ideas and thoughts that you would never imagine, and they will take your composition to a much higher level than you can imagine. So that is the beauty of working with Indian classical musicians, and that's why I always love working with Indian classical musicians. It's the same with all of these musicians that you mentioned, whether it's the sarod, whether it's the santur, whether it's the bansuri or the khatam or the nadaswaram. Everybody used their instrument in the best possible way, because all of them are pretty much leaders in the instrument that they play.
Absolutely.
They are the flag bearers of that instrument, and it's just a pleasure to watch them in action. I've always had a principle in my life that I will only work with musicians who are better musicians than me. So this was a fantastic example of that. Each and every one of these musicians was a better musician than me. And it was not me directing them. It was just me sitting back and just telling them that, do your magic. And me just being entertained and being wowed by what they brought in the studio and how they recorded their instrument.
That's so wonderful, well said, Ricky. But let me ask you this: how stressful was it for you to compose the national anthem in such an experimental way, especially when a large team of people as well as professional masters were involved in creating this iconic piece of art?
So when it came to the British Orchestra, it was quite stressful, simply because if you have a 100-piece orchestra, then you have to tell each member of the orchestra what exactly they're going to be playing. So it requires a lot of planning. It requires a few months of planning, of writing down the notes that each person is going to be playing. And as I mentioned, when do they play soft? When do they play loud? When do they play, short notes or long notes? And which note do they play, first of all? So basically, that was quite stressful. And then hoping that whatever you've written on the sheets of paper translates well, in the recording. With the children, as I mentioned, with the children, again, we had to figure out what exactly the children are going to be singing, because the children sang in 4-part harmonies. So it was not just them chanting or just them singing. They sang very, very musically. They sang with a lot of technicality, and they sang in harmony with each other. So to figure that out was a little difficult, and that was challenging. And as I mentioned, the logistics was challenging, but the children, they picked up everything really quickly, and it was very easy to work with them. Even during the rehearsal, they got everything absolutely perfect. And of course, the easiest to work with were the Indian classical musicians, the legends, because again, as I mentioned, they just did their magic, and I just watched them do their magic, and I captured their magic. That's all that I did.
Well, Ricky, music is a powerful medium that can unite a large number of people. What were your thoughts when composing this ambitious project, a national anthem for 140 crore people?
You are absolutely right. Music is that one thing that can unite people. I can give you an example. Like a few years ago, I had gone to Araku Valley in Andhra Pradesh, and I wanted to collaborate with a few tribal singing musician farmers. Because these amazing tribal farmers, they practice the purest form of agriculture. They've got indigenous knowledge that has been passed down from generation to generation. But at the same time, they also have songs that have been passed down from generation to generation. And I wanted to explore this music. And of course, I could not converse with them because the tribal farmers and I would not speak the same language. Also, even sign language would not work because our reference points are so different from each other. So it was very difficult to communicate through words. But as soon as I would play something on a musical instrument, that is on my guitar, as soon as I would play something, they would immediately respond to it with a musical response. They would sing something on top of it. And when they would sing something, I would respond to them with a guitar, and that is how we managed to collaborate with each other. So when language did not work, when sign language did not work, when no method of communication worked, music basically got through to us, and that is how we were able to communicate with each other. It's the same thing with the national anthem. The national anthem is that one unifying song that brings the entire country together. Wherever you may live in India, whatever culinary taste you may have, whatever language you may speak, whatever skin color you may have, whatever political ideology you may have, the national anthem unites all of us, and all of us have that sense of patriotism. Everyone has that sense of duty towards our country the minute we listen to that national anthem. So I believe that music is a very, very powerful force for bringing people together, and that is where the responsibility towards the national anthem becomes very important. When I'm creating a new version of the national anthem, and I've created many versions of the national anthem in the past, I always ensure that the part of the national anthem, right from Jana Gana Mana all the way to Jaya Hai, Jaya 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 Hai, all that entire portion has to be within 52 seconds because that is what is mentioned in the rules for the national anthem, that it has to be within 52 seconds, and for good reason, because it needs to sound powerful, it needs to sound energetic, the anthem, and the only way to do that is to finish off the anthem in its speed, in which you finish off the anthem within 52 seconds. And of course, like, you know, the national anthem is within all of us. So it's almost impossible for us to make a mistake when it comes to the national anthem, because it's within all of us and it comes naturally to all of us.
And you have the same feeling every time it plays. No matter how many times, you know, it plays, you feel the same. Now, I've been going through the reactions on social media. And I must ask you this, Ricky. The national anthem is not only, you know, an artistic masterpiece, if you will, but also an emotional experience in itself that resonates deeply with all Indians. So how does it feel to have the opportunity to create something like this, which you know will have a lasting impact?
So I just wanted to create a version of the national anthem. The end result did not matter, because anyway, this entire anthem is completely, you know, it's self-funded, it's done from the heart. It is, there's no branding on it, or there is no motive behind it. It's just about presenting this beautiful piece of music by Sri Rabindranath Tagore in an as beautiful manner and an as epic and monumental manner as possible, as the composition deserves. So last year when I did the version of the anthem with the Royal Philharmonic Orchestra, I thought that would be my penultimate version, and I'm not going to make any other versions because I won't be able to do better than this. But then after living with that anthem for a while, as I mentioned, that, you know, I felt that, you know, if it'll do very well with the soul of India. Now, the reason why I did that version with the Royal Philharmonic Orchestra is that I've worked with orchestras all over the world, and I love working with symphony orchestras. And I realized that a symphony orchestra, when you look at it, it is basically quite representative of the philosophy of what India is. In a symphony orchestra, you've got various instruments, like, for example, you've got a violin, which is a soft instrument. Then you've got a timpani, which is a loud instrument. You've got a harp, which is a soft instrument. You've got a trombone, which is a loud instrument. And each of these instruments has got its own unique identity. Each instrument is not trying to be another instrument. Like a violin is not trying to be a timpani. Right. A timpani is not trying to be a trombone. All these instruments have got the unique identity, and they're happy being their own unique identity. Yet, when all of these instruments play together, like in this case 100 musicians, when they play together, they come together beautifully in harmony. And that is what India is all about. Everybody does not have to be the same. Everybody can have their own unique identities, their unique ideologies, their own religious preferences. And at the same time, the whole country works together as one, because everybody comes together in beautiful harmony, and that is what India is. So last year what I did was that with the Royal Philharmonic Orchestra, I managed to capture the philosophy of what India is through a symphony orchestra. This year what I'm doing is that with these amazing classical musicians, I'm trying to capture what the soul and the essence of India is.
Well, you've been, this has been a major success. I mean, look at the rave reviews already, with people wanting more. And like you said, you will release more versions in the days to come. I'm reading your tweet. You've said that honored to share my epic rendition of a national anthem of India featuring top legendary Indian musicians. And then you say it is yours now, my humble gift to every Indian everywhere. Jai Hind. Ricky, congratulations on this, and thank you. That's all that I want to tell you. Thank you for doing this for Bharat.